Welcome to Latter-Gay Stories. Here we share real stories from across the LGBTQ+ community. These are the stories that challenge assumptions and help us see each other more clearly. Because sometimes all it takes is one story. And it might be this episode today that helps you to see something a little differently. Now, here's the host of the podcast, Kyle Ashworth.
Thank you for joining us on another episode of Latter-Gay Stories podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Ashworth, and you are at the intersection of sexuality and religion, where it meets at LGBTQ Avenue and LDS Street. Thank you for giving us a little bit of your time to better understand the experiences of the LGBTQ community. And thank you, David, for joining us in the studio.
Hi, how's it going?
I'm pretty excited. I'm excited to have you here, David Chappell. And we were just talking about it, like Chappell Roan.
Yes, Chappell Roan.
Do you dance at the Pink Pony Club?
Oh, you already know it, yeah.
So mid-episode, we will have a Pink Pony Club dance-off and see who wins for a t-shirt. How about that?
I'm all for it.
So David's in the studio sharing his story. We've got a great story, a great episode for you today. So thank you again for joining us. If you are watching on a video version of the podcast, we invite you to follow along and comment. Make your comments, share, like, subscribe in all those places where you are watching or listening, and help us to build bigger and stronger bridges between the LDS and LGBTQ community. And for those of you who are never Mo's, never Mormons, or never Latter-day Saints, this is a great message as well, because for many who were raised in conservative Christian religions, topics like this, where the LGBTQ topics meet at this religious intersection, is a language we all speak. So we welcome you to the podcast as well. So David, love you to tell the audience a little bit about yourself before we jump into your story, and let us know who David is.
For sure, yeah. My name is David Chappell. I recently changed my last name. I used to be David Schill, so some of you out there might know me as that. And I'm a civil engineer. I specialize in geotechnical engineering. Not that this has anything to do with the interview, but just some tidbits. I live in Provo. I went to BYU and love Provo so much, so I decided to stay with my partner, Carter. And yeah, we're engaged. We'll get married eventually. I don't know when, but eventually it'll be fun.
Yay. So if you like it, you got to put a ring on it.
Yeah.
Yes. So, okay, that's no more of the song puns in this episode anymore. So David's story is really unique because as we kind of discuss this and as we walk through it, you'll find out that David was very involved in a lot of queer movements on BYU's campus. He's one of those people like Bradley Marchant that we've had on the podcast who helped move the needle in creating spaces and organizations at BYU to help bring much more recognition to this topic, but also a sense of community and belonging to LGBTQ students who are attending BYU. A lot to talk about. So in many circumstances like this, David, I like to ask people, at what point did you realize I'm different?
Yeah, so I grew up in a family, and I grew up in like a rural community of Arizona, where, the houses are spread out and all my siblings were riding dirt bikes. And even my sister, she was probably the best rider out of all of us. And I think honestly, the first time knowing I was different was literally just like being kind of risk averse and kind of like, oh, I don't know if I'm really all about that adrenaline rush. And I don't know if I am, I was kind of scared to do the more manly stuff. I wasn't super athletic. I didn't really like sports very much. And so I tended to be friends with all girls, and I got kind of bullied for it a little bit. But I just never really related to other boys. And I didn't really understand why, but I understood in elementary school. I'm like, yeah, I'm not the same as these other people. So
what do you do, especially when you're young like that? What do you do, to understand a language that you don't speak? And then once you realize what that language is, how do you react to that? How do you move forward with that?
Yeah. By language I don't speak, do you mean kind of like the way that the boys were talking, or
that and like when you recognize, look, I'm different, but I don't have words to put to this difference. Like,
oh yeah,
I'm one. It's typically a puberty thing. That's kind of the point where a lot of us start putting the puzzle pieces together. But for you, what was it like to learn a new language, really, and to begin recognizing that your native tongue wasn't the same as everyone else?
Yeah, I think honestly what I did was isolate. Like I spent a lot of time, and I feel lucky to have been in like a rural area where it was a safe neighborhood, and there was like we had an old field and like all this space. And so I did a lot of, honestly, playing with dirt, looking at bugs, just kind of being on my own. And something that brought me a lot of comfort was learning and curiosity. So I mean, my family always said that I was just obsessed with encyclopedias, and I would be reading these encyclopedias and learning as much as I can. And honestly, I never did learn that language of, being straight. I never, like, I was much more interested in like learning about dinosaurs and the cosmos and all that I just became very like alone, but I was okay with it as a kid.
I'm curious about your family dynamic. You mentioned you were raised in a small town in Arizona, presuming very Mormon?
Yeah. And
your family very Mormon?
Yeah. So my family has been LDS for generations. It's the type of, so I'm from Lehi, Arizona, which is like, it's a part of Mesa, Arizona. And Lehi was settled by like my ancestors. So like there's this monument at the local church that's, a 10-minute walk away that like has my ancestors' names on it. And like one time the Arizona Republic or one of the local newspapers took a picture of me, my dad, and my grandpa, and it was like 3 generations of LDS families or something like that. So like that's the context I was raised in. So like there's this really deep heritage of like long-term LDS. Like no one left ever, at least on my dad's side. And then on my mom's side, I have an aunt who's gay, and I didn't like really know that. I didn't know that until I was pretty old, I would say. So I just thought like her partner was a friend, and I don't know if like any of us really knew. So it was just kind of not talked about, I guess. Like queerness wasn't really talked about, and being Mormon and being LDS was just like who we are. There wasn't really anything else. There was no choice. So.
How big is the city of Lehi?
I don't actually know, and it's not technically its own city. It's like it used to be an unincorporated part of Maricopa County, and then it was incorporated into Mesa. So, but like it's. I don't know. It's like one steak. I don't know how big steaks are these days, but like
so in Mormon terms, that's basically like 3,000 members, 2,000 to 3,000 members of the church, kind of congregation. And for our non-Latter-day Saint audience, that's like a diocese, equivalent to something you see in the Catholic Church. So about 2,000 to 3,000 members.
Yeah. So I would assume Lehi probably has maybe around 10,000 people ish, maybe less.
Yeah. So small.
Yeah.
I'm curious about family life. What was it like sitting around the kitchen table in the Schill family home? And what were discussions like? What were political and social discussions like?
Yeah, so politically, we were Rush Limbaugh and Glenn Beck family. I would say pretty politically active. I don't think my family's really politically active anymore. I mean, and I don't really blame them because politics has gotten so like toxic, I'd say. But I remember like staying up all night watching the election of 2008 when Obama won, and that was just like the end of the world, which is crazy looking back. Like that was so tame. But yeah, that's how politics went. And then like, I'd say like the family was, it sort of felt like we were all kind of living our own lives. I think we're all very independent, and very, very do it ourselves, and very, I like to say, like, I grew up with this understanding that anything is figure outable. Like, I can just figure it out. Like my mom, she's like, I want to start a business and I like big clocks. So she just like started making these giant clocks out of nowhere. And then like, she's like, oh, I want a TV console. And so she built this ginormous, like 10 feet by 5 feet. It's ginormous, this TV console. And so it was cool, like having friends over, and being like, yeah, my mom built that. My mom built that. Just like, so that's kind of a lot of our conversations, I think, had a lot to do with like what we're doing and what are our little thrifty things that we're working on.
Yeah, so it sounds like your family was raised with a fair amount of autonomy, and the ability to kind of venture and forge your own path. Curious, I mean, this is just me being curious, if there were discussions in your household about rogue dissension, because I think this is kind of a very typical Mormon thing, especially, and you brought up Obama and just talked about how in many aspects the world, especially, and I would imagine in Arizona, and John McCain and all of the things that were going on politically at that time, it almost felt like the whole world had collapsed and the bottom had fallen out. So there's that one aspect of the political side, but I'm curious about the rogueness of the social political issues of the day, and kind of you growing up in that environment, kind of a conservative, Orthodox, Republican, Mormon family. What was that like, and what did you learn?
I think the feeling was that that the world was scary, and that it was a threat. It was this big threat to our way of life, and that. And yeah, we lived in Mesa with all of our friends are LDS for the most part. And I felt like I was very sheltered. And we didn't really talk much about anyone that was different. Like I have some memories of, I know, my brother dated someone who then transitioned. And I remember that being talked about a little bit, and kind of not in the best ways. I don't think it was like hatred. It was more like, for me, it was more like fear. It was like, oh, that's like odd and kind of scary, is kind of the feeling that I felt. And yeah, like kind of this same, like my aunt and her partner, kind of a same feeling of like, yeah, that's our family. They're always going to be family. But they're a little bit of a threat, like my aunt Sandy, love her. She was always just like a little bit of a threat. Like she thought differently, and that was a problem. And there was a certain like barrier, like we can't be super close with people that think differently from us, because I don't really know. We didn't really think through it that far. It was just like, they're scary. So you keep them a little bit at a distance.
I think that's like super honest, because that is, I'm just nodding like, oh yeah, that it's not and I was trying to put words to the threat also in my brain. Like, what did we perceive the threat to be? And maybe the threat was just that they threatened the covenant path. They threatened the celestial kingdom. They threatened all those things that possibly, perhaps, maybe in a roundabout way, would prevent us from returning back to heaven. Like, so generally that was the overall problem. And kind of in Mormonism, and I think in a lot of religions, I like Mormon vernacular is, we have to hold to the iron rod, stay on this path, and if you deviate or venture off of that path, you risk both spiritual and mortal progression. So,
yeah, and in the story, you shouldn't even look, like you can't even look at the people who are like criticizing. It's very keep your head down and hold onto the iron rod and just keep moving forward. Yeah, the iron rod was like a very important story in my family. My dad, we have like this mesquite tree, and my dad would always like put Christmas lights on the mesquite tree and then have like a line, so it looked like the iron rod and the tree of life as like Christmas decorations. Yeah. But yeah, the iron rod was, yeah, very important. And for me, it felt like just hold on and keep moving forward. But another part that was important in that story to my family was that you don't hold on too tight. Like if you hold on too tight, then you'll get tired. And that will cause you to eventually fall off the path. And so I would say that, like, when it comes to orthodoxy, like, I don't know, we're the type of family that watch TV or sports on Sundays. I don't know, we're kind of relaxed about some things. So it's interesting. Like, I would say I grew up in an Orthodox Mormon family, but like a little bit Orthodox minus. But yeah,
it's kind of like, well, I used to call Idaho Diet Utah. Not so much anymore. It's like Coke and rum up in Idaho now, with some laws and legislation and all this stuff happening. But I get it, like this idea that yeah, you're not following every rule to its nth, but it does make sense. High school life. Curious about now as you're maturing, post-puberty, friends, dating, social classes, and all those things that are coming up. What was your experience?
Yeah, I think I still felt very lonely in high school. Like there was something missing somehow. Oh, what could be missing? I went on dates, I guess, but it was always just kind of like me and the girlies, you know? It didn't feel like a date, I guess. It felt more like having a great time with a really good friend. And like I kissed girls, but it also like something was missing. And you know, spoiler alert, I'm queer, and so I mean it makes sense. And it was almost like I wasn't fully able to let go. Like there was a certain, like, I have to always be pure, I have to always be good, and even though I'm being told I'm allowed to kiss girls, it doesn't, like the attraction to girls wasn't like enough to get like overwhelm my sense of purity that I have to I'm just like scared. I'm just like scared of everything. Scared of doing anything wrong. And I think that got in the way of me making friends. It got in the way of me having girlfriends. So
I was just thinking, a few years ago I interviewed, and I mean I feel terrible for not remembering whose interview it was, but they mentioned something very similar to what you just said about the fear of letting go and that purity culture. But something that he brought up in the interview that it stuck with me was that he knew in a kind of a roundabout way, I think I'm gay, but I don't really know if I am for sure. But he used that as an excuse to uphold the dignity and value of a woman. So didn't date, didn't kiss, wasn't very romantically close to girls, because he was making sure that he valued the purity and the chastity of women. And I think that's really true, because that's something that Latter-day Saints are really good at doing. Creating almost a barrier in sacredness.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's a great excuse. You can say like, oh, I don't think of women that way because that would be objectifying them. But I mean, in reality, maybe you don't think of women that way because you're shaming yourself for any attraction you have to anyone, because you're kind of scrupulous about. I also did conversion therapy in high school, and it was not like shock therapy. It was talk therapy, and they always teach you like if you stay too long on a thought that you're attracted to another boy, then that will convince your brain that you're attracted to boys, right? And if you instead you dwell on the thoughts of when you're attracted to other girls, then that will kind of reinforce your attraction to them. And so there's this kind of like thought policing that was ingrained in me from my therapist, of like, be sure that you are watching all of your thoughts, because that will control your sexuality, and you will be able to be cured of this if you watch your thoughts, if you become friends with other boys, and you know, there's this whole conversion therapy thing that was kind of messing up my brain in high school, that I think made me very lonely and very, I mean, I was lonely before, but kind of reinforced it. I didn't feel like totally human. Like, I didn't feel like I was able to make mistakes and able to just live my life. And I think that was really hard and made me really anxious and depressed. So
I feel like we missed such an important part of your story, where we went from high school to conversion therapy through. So I'm curious how you got to that point. Who did you come out to? How did you get to the point where you went from high school freshman to sitting in an office with a conversion therapist? And I don't even actually love to say the word conversion therapist, with a person who is pushing these ideas of conversion therapy.
Yeah, and I mean, again, we're kind of going chronologically, but little hints at the, you know, at the end of a movie, it like goes black and white, and it's like, this person went on to have 4 children, and that's what I feel like I'm doing every once in a while. My therapist was like literally licensed by the state of Arizona, and he had to give up his license because of sexual misconduct, because he had convinced himself that he was not gay. Anyway, it always ends bad. I don't know if I've ever met someone who tries not to be gay and it doesn't end bad. But back to how did I get into conversion therapy? I felt really guilty about my attraction to men. And so I told my parents, because that's what I had to do. That's what I'm supposed to do. I don't know that it was really because I felt like safe to do it. It was just kind of like, again, that purity thing. There's this voice in my head saying what you need to do, what you don't need to do. And I think it's a very powerful way that the church, the church, I think, trains you to police yourself. And so at some point, the church had convinced me that I need to tell my parents about liking boys. And so I told my parents, and they kind of approached it like, okay, I mean, that makes sense. I think let's have you go to this therapist, and he'll help you not feel that way anymore. And I'm like, well, yes, of course I want to do that. I don't want to feel this way. And it felt very much like, well, this is my cross to bear. It's just a struggle that I can overcome, and I just need to stay pure and just like keep controlling my behavior and my thoughts, and eventually this will go away. So,
how long did you meet with that conversion? I hate saying the word therapist.
I know.
it just tugs at my gut. Like,
this particular therapist, I mean, technically was a therapist at the time. And Arizona banned conversion therapy, I think, while I was on my mission. So that's kind of an interesting tidbit. Like, I would have been protected by the law if it had been passed a few years earlier. But yeah, I saw him for a long time. I feel like I started going, there was also like a group I don't remember. It's like Band of Brothers or something. You know, they all sound the same.
Was it Sons of Helaman?
I don't know.
Yeah, there's a handful of them. I'm just curious which there were.
Yeah, it was like a churchy. It was like a churchy group, and to help get over your sexual impropriety or whatever. And so they so I think I started doing that my sophomore year, maybe junior year. And then, so at least 2 years. And then I still met with this guy like after my mission too. I think maybe once or twice. And then I was at BYU. So like a while.
It is a while. I'm curious if you had any positive changes of sexuality or queerness. Did it work? Did anything work?
I would say yes. Ish. This particular therapist, while he was wrong, he was right about one thing, which is that like connection is important. He was like, oh, if you become friends and have close friendships with other boys, then you won't be gay anymore. I agree that like having close friendships is good, like, and he helped me have close friendships, and yeah, I guess it sort of worked, but I don't know that it really ever went away. But I became happier. I think my senior year especially, I felt like super happy and connected with the people around me, and I had close friends, and it was great. And my queerness became less of a big deal, I guess. I don't know that the attraction went down, but I guess I cared less about it.
Yeah, and I think that's probably the important distinction. We need to create a divide between social relationships and sexual relationships, or sexual identity and social identity. And in your case, it sounds like the therapist was able to help you socially become a better friend, a better human. But in terms of changing your sexuality, converting it from gay to straight, or queer to straight, didn't happen.
No, I think it more felt like I'm just like asexual. It sort of felt like I didn't really, yeah, it just sort of felt like I was asexual my senior year. And so I was happy with that. I'm like, okay, yeah, I don't have to worry so much about queerness, because I can just like prepare for my mission, focus on getting into college. So I think my senior year was like, yeah, very pro-social, and the sexuality just kind of like went to the side.
I like it. Let's talk a little bit about your mission and that preparation for the mission, because you brought up a mission a few times, and in every young Latter-day Saint life, at least young men who are, I sometimes call it force-free agency, you will go on a mission, won't you? Did you? I mean, I've heard, so you decided to serve a mission. Let's talk a little bit about that experience.
Decided is, I mean, yeah, I did decide to serve a mission. Yeah, I guess. And I'm glad that I did. And I got called to serve in the same mission as my brother. So he had served there like 9 years before I did, maybe 10 years before. And so that was very exciting. And also everyone else that I knew, all my friends that, like, I actually had friends at this point, senior year, and everyone was going on missions. And so I was gonna I wasn't that different. Like, I'm gonna go on a mission like everyone else is. Anyway, so there was also lots of excitement. And if there's anything that I love, it's like something really exciting to look forward to. Some sort of like, I don't know. I love a trip. I love something to look forward to. And so there was this excitement around me going back to the same mission as my brother in Milan, Italy. And yeah, did I Is that all? Did you have any other questions about that part?
Yeah, I mean, I want to jump in because there's a lot that happens in a mission, especially we talked earlier about companionship and connection to other humans. On a mission, you literally are living with a male companion for 24 months. And in some circumstances, you're living with multiple male companions for months on, or at least in 6-week intervals. We call them transfers in the mission. Or I mean, yeah, I guess in between transfers. These little lengths, six weeks of time in order to serve with a companion. So I'm curious what that was like. You've now started to put enough of the puzzle pieces together to start to understand this photo, this picture of who and what you are. So I'm curious what that mission experience was like and how things started to unfold for you. Maybe like a queer awakening, because it feels like that might have been the genesis.
Yeah. So the MTC was like hell and heaven. So it's like the MTC, I know some friends that like had relationships in the MTC, gay relationships in the MTC. I'm like, if I could go back and not be so like uptight and I could just have fun. And that's how I feel about the whole mission. I was like, oh, I wish I wasn't so uptight and I had more fun with this time of my life. But anyway, so my MTC experience was tough. For a lot of reasons. I think like getting into the mission is very mentally taxing. And that's kind of the first year of my life. First year of my mission was just like extremely mentally taxing. And I felt like my testimony was just like destroyed. It's like I went from 100 to 0 in the MTC, where I'm like, I don't know if this is true. There's too many complex things that I don't understand. I also, I have an issue with the fact that they send you through the temple right before your mission. I feel like I didn't get enough time to understand the temple. And also the temple is very important in my family. And I felt like, whoa, I don't get what's going on. I feel really upset by the temple experience. And I'm different from my family in that. Everyone in my family loves it. And now I'm going to go to Italy. Like there was a week, like I went through the temple and then I went to the MTC the next week. And I also literally had pneumonia in the MTC. I think my body was just like, whoa, you need to slow down. Too much is going on. So
that is a lot. And just maybe a little timeline for the audience. You get a mission call, and then typically when the church tells you, unlike Book of Mormon musical, they don't just announce where you're going and then you jump on an airplane. You get a little time to prepare, and that time is typically like 2 months or 3 months often to prepare for your mission. And then, as David is talking about, the MTC, it's an acronym for the Missionary Training Center. Once you are told where you're going to serve, in David's case, Milan, Italy, you then enter into the Missionary Training Center, and there you typically spend 3 months. Is that how long you were there, or 9 weeks?
I think it was 6 weeks.
6 weeks to learn a new language. Mm-hmm. And in your case, you had to learn Italian, I'm guessing. I served my mission in the great state of Michigan, so I didn't have to learn a language other than Michigander. So I spent 3 weeks in the Missionary Training Center. But again, as we've talked about this and on other podcast episodes, you're surrounded by men, other missionaries. Mm-hmm. You have a companion from the moment you walk into the Missionary Training Center to the point where you come off of the airplane, very literally. You have a companion. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You shop together. You sleep in the same room. You pray together. You eat together. You visit homes together.
It's kind of homo-romantic a little.
It's a very homo-romantic relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, and this isn't really deviating, in my mission, and I'm wondering if it was the same in yours, we hugged our companions. We told them we love you. We talked to. I mean, we were like close brothers.
We're naked in the apartment together.
Exactly.
We're like, I'm going to the bathroom while my companion's using the shower. It's very close. Yeah. Well, with the companions that you don't hate. Yeah, I mean, I also had some that really hated me, and looking back, I'm like, I get it. I was pretty uptight and annoying, and also like terrible at waking up early because anyway. So and depressed and
yeah, kind of understanding that now as you really think about the logistics of being a missionary, and now you add on the complexity of being a gay missionary, you can see why this can be problematic for a missionary who's navigating this journey of sexuality. Not that there's like this immediate desire just to lust after your companion or lust after anyone at that point, but really it's complex, and there's a lot of emotions, whether they're outward, but those feelings are inward as well as you're navigating these things. So complex for the missionary, but also super complex for the church. And in many experiences and aspects surrounding this topic, the church has not been very favorable to queer missionaries, elders and sisters who have decided to serve. So that could be a completely different podcast episode, but I do think it's important to bring that up and kind of frame that through your experience. So you go through the MTC. I know I kind of cut you off at the MTC experience, but let's just pick that back up. And you're heading to Milan, Italy, going through that missionary experience, training center experience in Provo. Where do we go from here?
Yeah, it was so exciting. I was so excited. I had just graduated high school. I had just gone through the temple for the first time. I had just, so many firsts. Like that 3-month period was just life-changing. And now all of a sudden, I took my first ever overnight flight, first ever. I mean, I had been to Central America once, but this was like the longest flight I've ever been on. And I'm just from like this rural area where I'm like taking care of cows and chickens, and now I'm taking public transit for the first time, and I'm
in the fashion capital of the world.
Yeah, that part too. And all of the missionaries are like, there's so many expectations. Like you have to follow the rules in the white book, the handbook, the missionary handbook, I think we call it the White Bible or something like that. But it's a little white like thing that you carry with you that has all the rules, which is terrifying looking back at. And then there's also like social expectations of like, you have to kind of act mature. Like you can't be too much of a greenie. You can't be, I mean, you are inexperienced, but you can't like be too bad at the language. Otherwise you get made fun of. Like you have to learn the language. It's just like so much going on all at once. And, that was very hard on me. I think I tend to, and looking back through all of my life, there's this pattern of I'm new at something and I just feel so anxious that it makes me depressed. And then little by little, I become better at it. And then like my senior year, I'm like thriving. This is so much fun. And then everything comes crashing down and I'm brand new at this again. And that's what this felt like. Like the beginning of my mission felt like freshman year, where I'm just this small fish in a big pool, and it's just like terrifying. So my first year was very hard for that reason, in addition to struggles with my testimony, like not understanding a lot of the doctrinal points. And then of course also being queer. Like I in my like third or fourth transfer, like near the beginning, I had a companion that I really vibed with. Like we were very good friends, and I felt close enough to come out to him. And I said, listen, I'm gay. And as soon as I said it, I was like, oh, that was wrong. I was like, I shouldn't have said that. And also it's not true. And then he, I guess, told the mission president and then got transferred. So we were like really good friends until I came out to him, and then he asked to leave, which is sad. And then he also told like other people in the mission. And so then there were rumors going around. And then my mission president kept pairing me up with people that were in that group of people kind of gossiping about me being gay. And so the first year of my mission was really tough. I felt like I was completely alone, and I didn't know the language, and I didn't understand what was going on, and I also wasn't able to have the same autonomy that I was used to. I couldn't be independent. I always had to do and also first year of my mission, I'm like the junior companion. I have to just do what he says. And that was really hard for me. So
I love that, because I think you framed that very well. That really explains the complexities of serving a mission. I'd imagine as well, serving in Milan, or Milan, as we say over here.
Milano.
That the culture is a shock.
Honestly, no. Yeah, I felt more of a culture shock coming back to the United States than I did going to Italy, because I think Italy's culture is like, I just felt like I belonged. And I always was way better friends with the members than with the missionaries. Like the missionaries were like talking behind my back and being shallow and like, I mean, they're being immature. And the members were always just so cool and so chill. Like, and I think like the church in Italy, if the church is true, I think the church in Italy is a little bit more true than in other places. Like, I feel like they're just really good people. And I just felt like I belonged. Now, I do have issues with the Italian culture. Like they can be kind of insistent, and I mean, I'm just painting with broad strokes, but they can be kind of insistent and like not really respect boundaries and that kind of a thing. But generally, I really, really loved the people there.
I want to talk a little bit about diversity and what you were able to learn about cultural diversity and humans, because that was one thing that I learned on my mission so well. The diversity of humanity and the diversity of the individual experience, and how it just wasn't Utah to me when I finally went out and served in a culture, in a world that was so different from where I was raised.
I fell in love with that. I fell in love with the fact that like I got to talk to people from across the world every day. Like I met people from literally like almost any country. And I became such good friends with I still am good friends with some people from the Philippines, or from Nigeria, or from South America. And like I ate their cuisine, and I just felt like it was such a, exactly that. There was such a beautiful diversity of people there, from across the world, with different views also. Like I met tons of atheists, I met tons of agnostics, and just seeing like, and that kind of chipped away at my testimony, but it also kind of made it stronger. Because it's like, no, I'm choosing to believe this thing that other people call crazy. And I can understand why they think that. Like I feel like my mind truly opened to that. And I just became so much more accepting of myself also. Like I came home from my mission like, well, isn't everyone a little gay? I don't think it really matters. And like a member came out to me, and I'm like, yeah, so no one cares. It doesn't matter. You do you. There were lots of gay people that that like came out to me on my mission. Like, and it's so funny because I always kept responding like, oh, I understand that. That makes sense. I'm not gay. I'm not queer, but like, I'm such an ally. And like I think you should do you. And anyway, so yeah, my mission completely changed the way that I saw things. I became, instead of this like small town, like threatened by the world, I became much more like in love with the world and in love with people and how cool it is to have people that are different, that think differently, and maybe they hate my religion, but that's okay. They don't hate me. And so I kind of learned that on my mission.
A lot of people who have sat in that same chair have said that they made bargains or deals with God as they were planning on serving their mission, or through the course of their mission, that my righteous church service should equate to you fixing me. Did you ever make those bargains?
I would say no. I've never really been super spiritual, I guess. It's like I was really religious, but I don't feel like God was answering my prayers, and I was just kind of like okay with that, I guess. I'm like, oh yeah, he's busy. I don't know. Like, there are other people that have it harder than me that maybe need more support from God. There were a couple times where I felt like God answered my prayers, but I don't feel like, again, I felt alone, and I didn't feel like he was there to fix me. It always felt like I'm just going to fix myself. And it's my job to fix myself. I think that my mission was really good in that I accepted myself, but also I wasn't fixed. And I accepted the fact that I wasn't fixed and that maybe I wasn't ever going to be fixed. But yeah.
I think that, is a great kind of a lead into post-mission, and then starting to decide what the future looks like for you. And as you mentioned earlier, that future had at least another acronym, BYU. Let's just talk about wrapping up that mission and then making the decision to attend BYU, knowing full well what BYU was.
I would say I didn't know full well what BYU was. Yeah, I would say that I wish that I knew more about BYU, but I am so glad I went to BYU. Anyways, so I come home from my mission having decided to go to BYU because I had prayed and I felt good about going to BYU. And that's pretty much the whole story. I came home in 2019 and pretty much immediately went to college. I had like a couple months that was super fun, and then went to BYU. And look at that, I'm a freshman again. So it's kind of the same path. I think everyone deals with this, but at the end of my mission, I was the experienced, the cool, like senior guy. And then now I'm back to square one. I'm a freshman. I don't know what I'm doing. and yeah, my first semester at BYU was very difficult, as my first semester of anything is very difficult. And I did not understand the rules of BYU. I kind of just thought like, oh yeah, it's a lot easier than a mission. So I'm like, I'll just like be a good Mormon and it's fine. So I didn't really think that much about it, I'd say.
Uh-oh, it's not fine.
Yeah, it presented some issues later. But yeah, anyway, my first semester was very difficult. I don't know why, but they decided to call me as an executive secretary, and that was so stressful. So like, you would think it's just like managing the calendar of the bishop, but it was way more than that. It was like going to bishopric meetings every morning, and talking about like really dark stuff. I think the a really important part of that first semester was there was someone down the hall that actually died by suicide in our ward, and we, as a bishopric, and I didn't know him. Otherwise, I may have been more affected. But the way that it affected me was now like the whole ward is like on suicide watch, because we had so many people that were so upset. And I am literally like 20 years old at this point. And I am like going to everyone and like taking care of everyone, making sure that everyone's feeling good. And also like in like 18 credits of my civil engineering degree. And like, it was just so much. And like my friend, his dad was diagnosed with cancer, and like so much happened that first semester, and it was so overwhelming. And I guess I don't really have a point to say other than that was just hard.
I think it's so relatable to other Latter-day Saints who kind of experience that. You do spend a lot of time draining your cup and pouring into other people's.
Yeah.
That's a great way of understanding Mormonism, where you just really take all the energy and all the life and give it to everyone else. And I often get raked over the coals on social media or in social media about my rant about selfishness, but sometimes it's important for us to be selfish a little. It's important for us to take care of ourselves and secure your own oxygen mask before thinking that you are capable of helping other people. And that's something that we as Latter-day Saints do a terrible job at, in securing our own oxygen mask. We're always determined to help everyone else and live in selfless service, realizing that we're withering and dying on this vine. And it sounds like at 20 years old, you are learning those harsh lessons.
Yeah. And part of me was, to bring it back to queerness, part of me was kind of happy that I didn't have to deal with that, because I was dealing with so much else. I don't know. I felt asexual at that point too, where it was just like, yeah, I have bigger fish to fry. And looking back, I wish that, I don't know, I think that time in my life sort of felt like stolen from me. Like I'll never be able to experience that again. That time in my life was very formative. But I just feel like I lost so much.
How does someone go from near empty cup, exhausting themselves in the service of God, in your church service and all these things, to advocating for the queer community at BYU? Because that seems like a gigantic leap.
It was. Yeah. So I'd say after that semester, I just had to get out. So I ended up moving to I moved to like a house for the first time. So before I was living at Heritage Halls, and it just kind of felt like clinical and like a hospital. And then of course there was the trauma of that first semester, and yeah, I just had to get out. And so I was able to get some more space, and I didn't have like a leadership thing in my new ward. I just got to be kind of like a normal person. And then there was March of 2020, which was when they reversed the honor code decision, where they said, hey, queer people get to date now. And I remember seeing that like, oh, that's great for them. Like, and I honestly was like, oh, I didn't know that queer people couldn't date, but like cool that they can now, I guess. I think that's cool. And then they reversed it like 2 weeks later.
Yeah, it was really quick.
Yeah. And I'm like walking out of the HVAC, and I saw that email and read it, and I'm like, I don't understand this. I like, what does this mean? What does this apply to? Like, I don't know what's going on. And I step out of the HVAC, and there are hundreds of people protesting. And I'm like, what is going on? This is so odd. And I just like kept walking, and I'm like, I don't know what's going on. But eventually, like, I read some more articles about it, and I'm like, okay, this seems like really, really fucked up. Like, this is really bad. I can't believe that my university would do this to these students. Like, yeah. And I feel like I started to have a little tinge of, I guess, compassion, or like a little bit of like, oh, like justice. I had this sense of like, this isn't right. This isn't good. And then the pandemic hit and everything ended. Everyone, like the whole campus scattered, and I went and lived with my parents. And here I was back in a situation where I'm alone. And I don't know, it sort of felt, and I think that this happens a lot in psychology, where if you go back to a place from your childhood, you kind of become that child again. I sort of felt like I became that person again, and that I had lost so much progress that I had made from being alone, from being on my own. Independent. Yeah. And so I think I had this seed planted in me of like, I can't lose what I had. Like it's like I felt this joy of being accepting of myself, of being accepting of others, of just living life, and having this joie de vivre after in that short period after being in the bishopric before COVID. It was like, oh, I had a couple months where I could just be myself and be free. That I'm like, I'm not going back, and I don't want to. And so I started to kind of get like curious again. And so I was looking into all sorts of stuff, all sorts of politics stuff. And this was 2020. And so I was seeing the president do a terrible job of handling this pandemic. And eventually I was like talking to a friend, and we were just swimming in the pool, and he was just like, David, what if we didn't vote for Trump? And that was such a like small moment, but it meant so much, because I'm like, what if? Like, what would that say about me? What would that mean for my life? And I kind of decided I decided I couldn't support him. And that was kind of the first domino to fall, was like me no longer being Republican. I mean, I've always been registered independent. I've always hated both parties, but this was the first time where I'm like, I'm going to actively choose not to support the Republican Party. And that was really big. That was a very big deal. And yeah, I say the first domino to fall because then in the coming months, I got too mentally ill to stay at home. And so I moved back to Provo, and I moved into this house with a bunch of really cool people. And all of them were like, yeah, I don't want to vote for Trump. And they were very like one of them was an EMT, and like somewhere I had a friend that was like studying public health, and like all this, like, yeah, we value this curiosity and this like science, and I became, even though I was studying something in STEM, I became more open to the fact that like science is under attack, and like people are disputing science, and this is like really bad. And I think I became more skeptical of everything. I became more skeptical of the church even, and became more skeptical of the things that were being taught to me in college, in my religion classes, and just kind of like, well, if someone can lie that has so much power, and they're lying about like these things that matter so much, like what if other people are lying? And so I think that time of my life was just filled with lots of questioning, but it was so fun. Like, I don't know that it was like detrimental, like, and heavy, like it may be for others. Like that time of my life was extremely fun and very, again, a time of my life that just like my eyes were being opened, open to like, maybe I'm being lied to. Maybe this is all wrong, and I need to be more skeptical of any information that's coming across my desk.
Yeah, it's like welcome to Oz, Dorothy. You kind of learned and found out for the first time that there was somebody pulling on the levers behind a curtain.
Yeah, and I guess it kind of goes back to that the honor code decision, because I knew when that happened. I think I just knew, like, this is wrong, and how could the commissioner of education be wrong about something so important? It felt like odds.
Yeah, and I think it might be appropriate to bring up the Commissioner of Education at the time, Clark Gilbert, who released that statement clarifying.
I think it was actually the Paul Johnson.
Oh, that was Paul C. Johnson.
Yeah.
That was Paul C. Johnson. I was just going to say, because now that has, surrounding that whole experience, because I remember being there with Latter-day Stories at BYU, and then we ended up doing a broadcast in Salt Lake City in front of the church headquarters. But the Commissioner of Education, and then Gilbert became something with CES.
He became the Commissioner of Education in 21. Ugh, I don't know my dates.
Yeah, it was a little later.
Shortly after, yeah.
Who was very influential kind of in this arena as well, implementing some new policies and clarifying certain policies about how BYU students, especially queer BYU students, should act, and facilitators, professors and facilitators at BYU, specific questions that they could be fired or not hired regarding the way they answered those questions and this topic. So this subject. So he's now, my point, Clark Gilbert is now an apostle of the church, one of the highest leading members in Mormonism, and eventually has an opportunity to become the president of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. So very interesting kind of the train of thought that we get with that apostle. And you're in the mix of this. You're really in the thick of all of these experiences, and still knowing what you know and learning what you learn, are advocating for that queer student at BYU. Yeah,
and eventually I came to terms with the fact that I am queer. And I mean, to be honest, it was because I started dating my partner, who I'm still dating, and I started that relationship saying, like, hey, listen, like, I don't know what this is, like, I don't do dates with men, but like, let's be friends. Like, it sounds like we both kind of struggle with same-sex attraction. And meanwhile, he's like, what the hell? what is this guy saying?
I'm just curious, was he Latter-day Saint? Was he raised Mormon?
Yeah.
So
we were both at BYU, and he was doing his master's at BYU. And so, like, he had quite a bit of time, and he was openly like, yeah, I'm queer. And so, like, to have me be like, yeah, I don't know, this isn't a date. And I was just so scared. And it was interesting I mean, eventually we started dating, and I'm still like, I don't identify as gay. I'm not gay. And I literally have a boyfriend at BYU. When it's like against the rules, that was a confusing time.
Oh yeah, you're confusing everybody. I have a T-shirt that says, "I'm not gay, but my husband is." So
it's what it felt like.
Yeah. So I mean, it makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just a Mormon thing.
I could not accept it. I could not accept the fact that I was queer, and it was, yeah. Anyway, so that was 2020 during the pandemic. I randomly was like, sure, I'll go on a date with a guy, but let's not call it a date. But yeah, it just kind of clicked, and it was eventually, after maybe a couple weeks of dating, honestly, I was like, okay, I guess this is it. I guess I'm queer, and have to deal with this now. I can't keep running away. And I definitely had times where I'm like, I need to know that this is good and okay with God before I keep going, because I don't want to end up like, I don't want to live a life of sin. Like, that's not, I think there's a lot of people think that people leave the church because they want to sin. I don't get that at all. I mean, that wasn't my experience. For me, I'm like, I actually did everything I could to avoid sin. Like, I never wanted to do that. And I never could live a life knowing that I was doing something wrong with God. Like, I was unable of doing that. Like, I had to know for myself that, like, whether or not I should pursue a relationship with this person. And I prayed a lot, and I even said, like, listen, Carter, we can't date anymore. This isn't going to work. And I think Carter said, like, well, pray about it, think about it. And he was also religious at the time. And so, yeah, I prayed about it. And I just finally, for the first time in my life, felt like human, I guess. I had this very calm feeling come over me of just like, David, it's okay. You can let go. You can be chill. And this is good. And so, yeah, we didn't break up because I finally had the assurance that I needed, that God believed that this was good. And I remember like talking to my good friend, and we were in a car, and we were listening. It was like Christmas time, and we were listening to this Christmas song, the First Noel, the BYU version of the First Noel, and I just like started bawling. I'm like, listen, like, no one can convince me that this is bad. No one can convince me that I'm living in sin. This is like the best thing that's ever happened to me. I've never felt more okay. I've never felt more human, and I've never felt more happy to be alive than finally accepting my queerness and being with another man. And so, yeah, in a way, I gained a testimony of queerness, I guess you could say. Like, I had, I mean, the same way that we get a testimony of the church, I mean, it's the same thing. I prayed about it and had a strong confirmation of what was right for me. And that just like is one of the most special times of my life. And it was at BYU in a time when none of that was allowed. But it's almost like my queerness gave me the bravery to be myself. I think if I wasn't queer, that I would be very different. I think I would be much more conformist and more willing to just go with the flow and not make a disturbance. I think this feeling, this queerness, which I think is much more than just your attraction. I think it's like your culture, I mean, it means a lot to me. I think it has made me the person I am now.
I think that's a really great way of putting it, because it's exactly true. And it is, I mean, it's this realization that some people are fish and other people are birds. And we both rely on oxygen to survive. You were created with lungs. I was created with gills. And we just process some things differently, but our experiences can be joyful. And a bird may fly around and experience flight and lift and the environment, the atmosphere. But as a fish, I can explore the depths, and I can explore rocks, and diets are different. I mean, just there's so much that contrasts, yet we're living. and we're experiencing, and we have so much in common as well. And those are really some of those differences, and we kind of forget that we are different.
Yeah, and
people are different, and that's okay.
And the differences are beautiful, because without fish there would be no birds, and without birds there would probably be no fish. We all need each other, and diverse ecosystems are the ones that survive the longest. They're the ones that produce the most good for the planet. And so, yeah, I love diversity. I love people being different. I think it's so cool. And I finally was able to accept that I just am different. There's nothing I can do that will make me a good, straight Mormon boy, and that's okay.
I want to kind of venture into this world of the future and what you do with that, because I think that might be an important part of this episode. As people are listening to your story and realizing where you did find footing and where you found your sea legs, what do you do with it? And how do you move forward with that?
I think I'm a fighter, and I'm also a lover. I don't think you have to be one or the other. I think that's the beauty of queerness to me, is that yes, we fight, we throw bricks at Stonewall, but we also build beautiful communities that include everyone, and that include also straight people. Like I've had so many people, straight, whoever they are, they say, like, I've never felt safer than with your friends, with your queer friends, because we have been through so much, and we understand exactly how to accept people, because we've had to, like, do the biggest task of accepting ourselves in a world that doesn't accept us. And so I think, like, I can be both. I can be a lover and a fighter. So how does this apply? At BYU, I became super involved in being a lover and a fighter, of building something that would actually help people, and fighting against the system that was harming these people. So I would talk to so many, like, administrators, and honestly, almost all of my experiences with these administrators were very good. And then they would talk to their boss, and then our progress would get squashed, and it was this constant push and pull that became so hard for me, but also extremely fulfilling, of being able to build something that matters, while tearing down the system that doesn't matter. Tearing down the system that tells you that you have to be a certain way. So yeah, it kind of waxed poetic a little bit, but
it makes sense, and it's commendable, because a lot of people kind of lack that desire, or lack the ability to see where their very simple tools are necessary, where their abilities can be used, and they just don't recognize the areas that they can be so effective. And I say this a lot. Some of the most powerful episodes on the podcast are those that are remarkably normal, those that are just the simple, easy, relatable stories. It's because we move the needle with simple, easy, and relatable. It doesn't take monumental things to shift opinion, or just to be visible, or to be active in your community, or to stand up for something that you believe in. For many of us, that's just natural. It's the fighter that you just explained, and the lover at the same time. You love yourself and love your community enough to fight for it. And we see that with the Mama Dragons. We see that with Dragon Dads. We see that with so many groups out there, the Free Mom Hugs, and all these organizations that are fighting with love, fighting and loving at the same time. And what you've done at BYU is remarkable. really. The creation of what originally was the BYU Pride Center, BYU Pride that morphed into Cougar Pride. I'm sure there's a whole episode there about BYU and their disdain for their name being used so close to the rainbow.
Yeah, and I'll say actually, the legal counsel brought me into his office and he's like, David, listen, you can't use BYU Pride, and I'm like, yeah, I get it. I understood. I kind of saw this coming, but the thing about BYU is that they'll be so nice to you. Like he's like, you have to change the name of your organization, and also like, here's a free hat. I still have a couple of the hats from this legal counsel guy. And anyway, yeah. And so yeah, we switched to Cougar Pride Center because legally that's allowed, and it still signals like this is a Pride Center for BYU students.
Let's talk a little bit about what the Cougar Pride Center does, what Cougar Pride offers the community. I mean, I don't want to be the spokesperson because I've been involved for years with those efforts, but tell us the joys, tell us what someone can expect. And to the queer person who's coming into BYU as a freshman this upcoming semester, or a parent who's listening who knows that their LGBTQ son or daughter is heading to BYU, what resources are available to their children, and kind of lay out the foundation that's been put in place for the queer students.
For sure, yeah. Cougar Pride Center focuses on two main things, resources and events. So starting with resources, you can always reach out to @Cougar Pride Center on Instagram, or you can reach out to email, which is info@cougarpridecenter.org. And we will help you with just like whatever. Something that I found as a BYU student is there are so many resources that I don't know about, or that I don't understand, or I don't have the right connections. We try to make it easier. So you can just tell us what you're going through, and then we'll match you with the right resources. If you need a name change, or you need a binder, or you need, you just need community, or there are so many like different needs of the queer community that are so like specific, and it can be hard to read through pages and pages of information. So reach out to us and we will match you with the right person. That's kind of our go-to. Like, you should definitely do that. If you're a queer student, you should definitely reach out, because one of the most at-risk groups is exactly what you said, that freshman queer student. I don't know if that guy in my ward who died by suicide, I don't know if he was queer, but a lot of people are in that position, and I was in that position. I was extremely suicidal as a freshman at BYU, without a home, without a place, without a community. So that's the easiest way. You just reach out and we will bring you into the fold, I guess you could say. Anyway, we'll tell you all about all the things you need to, all the events you need to go to, and that kind of a thing.
And it is a lot of fun. I mean, sometimes we need people to write letters. Sometimes we need people to sidewalk chalk. Sometimes we need people to hold LED flashlights on a really, really big Y that's sitting on a mountain somewhere near the BYU campus. Sometimes we just need a friend.
What could that be?
I know, yeah. I don't know. I don't even know these people who might be involved in such activities.
Well, a funny story with that, I saw the rainbow Y. Well, I think literally randomly I just went outside and it was rainbow, and I'm like, what the hell? What's going on? And so me and my partner, boyfriend, we went up there, and we were just like going up the Y, and I actually got a phone call from my from a really good friend. There's lots of drama there. I don't want to go into that, but I got a phone call from her, and she's like, David, listen, I heard from your parents that you're like choosing that gay lifestyle, and I just want you to know that like I'm here for you whenever you want to like come back to Jesus. It was one of those phone calls, and it was just so funny because I'm like on the way to the Rainbow Y, and I'm like, I think you called too late. Anyway, so I go up there to the Rainbow Y, and there's just like all these people talking, and it was such a fun experience. And that's where I met, I don't know if you'll have to cut this. That's where I met some famous gay people. And it was just cool to see that. It was so cool that I decided that it needed to happen again. And so I talked to Bradley and was like, listen, this is happening again. I was kind of like probably more assertive than I should have been, but I was like, listen, Bradley, we're going to make this happen again. And this time it's going to be BYU students, and this time it's going to be above board. And it was. So the second time it happened, like, BYU security knew about it. They were there to protect us. They, like, everything was all in line, and we had like this soft support from BYU, and like it was so fun. And all of our friends, we were all BYU students, and we went up and lit the Y again, and it sort of felt like it would become this tradition of like, oh, we're gonna do this every year we're gonna do this every year to celebrate Queer History Month or celebrate the anniversary of the honor code change. And it was just honestly so fun. And then Clark Gilbert, thank you, Clark Gilbert, came down with the worst policy that I've ever seen, and that is his anti-protest policy, the demonstration policy. And he said, no more. You can never do a protest anywhere on BYU property without approval, which is, to me, against the spirit of what a protest is. And so that happened. And I don't know that it was because of me. I'm sure it was because of a lot of other things as well. But yeah, he started to crack down on protests, but then a very important member of the community died, Chris. Geraldine Poole, you might know her, reached out and said, I want to do something to honor Chris. And came up with this idea of, what if we light the rainbow in trans colors? And I'm like, hell yeah, that's happening. So we're doing that. So I reached out to Bradley and say, hey, guess what, Bradley, this is happening. And so we planned this other one where we did both rainbow and trans. And this time it had to be alumni because we weren't about to get kicked out of school. And like, they got warnings for trespassing. But at the end of the day, it was just so positive. Like, and it was exactly that kind of like a little bit of resistance that meant so much to so many people. Like this little act of resistance, this little fight, you might call it, brought so much love to the entire valley. So many people saw it. I mean, I even know that my partner's family saw it from across the lake in Saratoga Springs. And it's just one of those experiences that was just so cool.
It was visible. There's no doubt when you talk about visibility and people noticing, because it was the talk. And the footage of that night where we broadcast the rainbow lighting and the trans lighting, we ended up, Latter-day Stories was live. We covered all that footage, ended up, some of that footage become part of Mormon No More on Hulu. So we got national attention. We were there with cameras because of that threat of being arrested. Those people who were carrying lights to light up the Y were under threat of arrest. BYU Police Department was there. It was $1,000 fine. It was a misdemeanor. I mean, it was a lot. It was pretty intense for a lot of those people who held flashlights. And some of those people who were holding flashlights were therapists. They held professional licenses, and those were all in risk being arrested for public protest or for trespassing or whatever the church wanted to try to say at that point. So it was a lot, and it made national news. It was obviously local news. In fact, if I remember, I don't know if it was that one actually, one of the lightings, KSL, the church's owned television station, flew their helicopter and grabbed helicopter footage of the Y. So it definitely made the news, and it was big and still is memorable.
And let's do it again.
Yes.
This is the type of thing that I'm saying, like we can fight and love at the same time. I love BYU. I am so glad I went to BYU, and all the people that I met, and all of my education, the professors cared about me. Like, there's so many reasons to love BYU. I don't want to let some guy with a power trip destroy my university. Like, that's just my opinion. That's how I feel about BYU. I don't want it to become a place where you have to be a certain way, because one of the most enriching parts of BYU were those people that were against the grain, that were, the alternative, the counterculture. And that is so cool. And I don't think will ever go away. But imagine a world where everyone accepts everyone for who they are, where everyone can have what they need, like where wages are fair, where your landlord doesn't kick you out for unfair reasons. Like, I imagine a world where we can all just love each other and treat each other with respect, and it doesn't have to be a threat. I don't feel like I'm a threat to anyone. I want everyone's life to improve. And your life will improve if you accept queer people. Your life will improve. You will be happier. BYU administration, they get so many headaches having to deal with this queer menace. Imagine if you didn't have to deal with that and you just accepted us. But that's my viewpoint. And no matter what, I'm gonna love BYU. I have complicated feelings, but I still love it.
I appreciate it, because that's what really does move the needle. That is what makes a difference in our communities. And not to completely deviate, but that is part of, I think, who David is. This idea that you want to help community, you want to see a better future. Not only, I see your activism for the queer community within the bubble of BYU, but that's also in a very real way expanding through to your future efforts personally in your life, in your career, and what you want to see for the city of Provo. And call me crazy, but I'm pretty sure I did see some campaign signs as well. David the politician, District 62.
Never call me that. I hate politicians. I have always hated politicians, and I guess I am one now. But I'm a fighter, and I can't just stand by right now. Every single session in the Utah legislature, I just get this feeling that they don't care about us, and they just are in it for themselves. And similarly to BYU, it's like, I can still love this country, I can still love BYU, and that is why I want to change it. That's why I want to improve people's lives. So there are so many parallels. It's like, I was at BYU where things were very authoritarian and very strict, and there's this counterculture and all that. And then I graduate, and then it's like, now the whole country's BYU in a lot of ways. And so I just feel called to keep fighting for this vision of the world that I have, that vision of a world of peace, where we're never going to have peace until we get rid of this insane income inequality. We're never going to have peace. We're going to have peace when everyone's mouth is fed and everyone's child has an education. And we're going to have peace when everyone is taken care of. And when we stop caring about these things that divide us. I believe in a world where we don't care if you're Republican or Democrat. I believe in a world where queerness is seen for the beautiful thing that it is, not as a threat. And I think that little by little, and hopefully all at once, hopefully soon, we'll be able to get that beautiful world that says that you can be whoever you want to be. I grew up in America being taught that I can do whatever I want, that I can choose to become a doctor or a surgeon or an engineer, or I can do whatever I want with my life. And it doesn't feel like that freedom is there anymore. And yeah, I credit it to queerness. I think that it's because of my queerness that I had to develop my own self, independent of expectations of acting a certain way. My queerness made it impossible for me to just sit back and conform. But instead, it brought out this fighter in me, this lover in me, to build something that's much more beautiful than the world that we're headed to now.
Oh, I love that. It's like a John Lennon song mixed with a good television ad. It really is. It's the world that I think a lot of us. I'm sure there's plenty of people nodding, saying, "Yes, I look forward to that. I want that." And I think in the past we've had something close to that, and we've also deviated from those feelings and experiences today. So it's necessary. It's time.
It's time, and it's not threatening. Like, I don't want to take away your guns that you love so much. I don't want to take away your family, your family values. A queer person existing is not a threat to your family values. Like, you have to learn how to accept everyone, because I believe in that world. And I think that it will happen in our lifetime. And maybe it'll happen a little bit, and we can like ease up. We don't have to fight so much, but then we'll have to fight some more. I think that's the current fight that we have now. And we have to be prepared to not let our expectations become, oh, well, we can't let the bar keep going down. We have to set our standards at, we love each other here, we accept each other here, we take care of each other here, and anything less, I don't think we can stand for.
I love it. Before we wrap the podcast, I want to talk about a couple dates, not dates, but always in the spring, BYU, you guys do hold your Cougar Pride.
Yes.
And so I definitely want to plug that, because that's coming up really soon. We're recording this episode in March of 2024, but typically every April, you will do the Cougar Pride. So tell the audience a little bit about Cougar Pride. When is it this year in 2026, and what can we look forward to?
Awesome. So, yes, every year in April, we do Pride in Progress. So the idea of this, you also have Back to School Pride, and we bookend the school year. Rainbow Collective does Back to School Pride to start off the year, get this energy going. And then Pride in Progress is all about looking back at the year and saying, what ways did the queer community win this year? Like, how did we progress as a society, you know? And that might not be very visible to see. And that's why the message of this event is so important, because we focus on the little things like my mom decided that my boyfriend could finally come over for Thanksgiving. Like, that's a huge win. And so it's those little pieces of progress that we like to focus on. It's a Pride festival. So it also has a march. So what we do every year is we start at the Provo Historic Courthouse, and we have some beautiful speeches, have a little rally, and then we march up Center Street to show the whole town that queer people exist, and that we're not gonna hurt anyone, that we are not a threat. And we march over to Memorial Park, where then we have this beautiful music festival with tons of booths, and I'm really excited. The booths this year are going to be so fun. And this year it's going to be on April 11th. We always try to stick to the Saturday before finals. So mark that in your calendar for the next few years. It's always the Saturday before finals, BYU finals. And you should definitely come. It's always been such a beautiful event, and I love it.
I do too. My husband and I have attended. Our kids have been there. So we've made that a family event, and we do love Pride and Progress. It's always been a great experience. And earlier in the podcast, you talked about the Instagram as well, because that really is where you can grab a lot of information, and it really details everything that's happening with the Cougar Pride Center.
Yeah, at Cougar Pride Center.
Yeah, really simple. And last, I think I opened up the door, but I do want to give you an opportunity to plug your campaign a little bit as well. So those who are interested in following your journey, supporting you possibly in your election in the Provo district, where can they get a hold of you?
For sure, yeah. I also have an Instagram, and it's also very simple. David for Utah, FOR. The campaign is all about getting more normal people into politics, less corporate interests. So like I've narrowed it down to like 6 main points where I want to ban corporate money in politics. I want to save the Great Salt Lake. I want to declare a housing emergency and invest in normal people building houses instead of these giant corporations. I want to do a lot of other things too, though that wasn't 6 of them, but I'm going to get better
at remembering all 6.
At remembering all 6. But you can see my full plan on my website, which is davidforutah.com. That's davidforutah.com. You can also donate there. I don't accept any corporate money, and I never will, because I think that corrupts our politicians, and it has corrupted this politician that I'm running against. So please donate. Every dollar counts. Thank you.
I love it. David, thank you for opening up, sharing a little bit of your story, your journey with the Latter-day Stories audience, and just being remarkably normal, and having the desire and the ability to overcome a lot of those personal challenges that in a very real way have benefited and deeply enriched the BYU experience for not only the students, but their families who send their children away to a university and just pray every day for their safety and their connection and their ability to thrive as young adults. And I think what you've done with the Cougar Pride Center has been phenomenal in that ability to connect the real world experiences with those young BYU students. So thank you.
Yeah, and it's remarkably easy. It's not as hard and intimidating as you think. And that's what I always tell people, that like, if you want something to happen, just reach out and we'll make it happen. It's we have such a powerful community that has so many skills and so much ability to reach people and help these people. So just reach out and become part of the community.
I love it. Again, thank you to the audience who participate, support, and love this podcast. If something in David's story meant something to you and resonated with you, we invite you to share that in the comments. You're welcome to comment on our Facebook or YouTube channel. It does 2 things. 1, it allows us to create conversation, and 2, it helps the algorithm to share this episode with other people. Just by simply commenting, liking, subscribing does so much for the podcast. So thank you to those who are participating in those online chats. And if you are listening on an audio version of the podcast, we invite you to subscribe to this channel as well, so you can find out when our next episode drops. Be the first in line and first to know. Again, thank you again to all of our Latter-day Stories audience for supporting, loving, and participating in each of these episodes. It's stories like yours, it's stories like David's, and stories like mine that help us each continue writing our own Latter-day Story.
You've been listening to the Latter-day Stories podcast. Thanks for being here. If this episode meant something to you, we invite you to follow the show so you don't miss future stories and our live events. And if you'd like to help these voices reach more people, consider leaving a review or sharing this episode from wherever you are listening. You can find hundreds more stories just like this one on our YouTube channel, online at lattergaystories.org, and wherever you listen to audio podcasts. Have a story to share? We'd love to hear it. Visit our website or reach out through social media to connect about sharing your experience. Because this is just one story, And there are many more to be told, right here on Latter Gay Stories.